Do you ever look around and feel like everyone got a head start on life except you? Because I certainly have multiple times. Looking around, seeing people getting married, moving overseas, buying homes, building their careers, building their businesses, posting win after win, highlight after highlight on social media. And then you're sitting there thinking, how the hell did they get so far ahead? And what I want you to know, what I want me to know as well, is you're not lazy. You're not doing nothing. You're actually trying. You're ambitious. You care. You think deeply. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. But there's this pressure that you feel, and it sounds like I'm late. I'm behind. I need to catch up. And the thing about that, and I've experienced this as well, is that feeling can really mess with your decisions. It can completely rush you into paths that aren't yours, that aren't authentic to you. It can make you question your worth and who you are. And it can actually steal your clarity and peace. So, in this episode, we're going to unpack why that feeling shows up so strongly. What's actually happening in your brain and in your nervous system when you think you're falling behind, and how this belief actually creates a subtle loop that keeps you stuck in urgency and comparison. So you'll understand where this pressure comes from, why it feels so goddamn real in your body, and how to break free from it. My intention is for you to really have a much clearer sense of your own timing in life, a much calmer nervous system, and a set of very practical shifts and questions that you can use and start implementing today to move forward without that constant feeling of being late to your own life, without that constant feeling of being behind compared to others. So if you've ever felt like you're falling behind, then this episode absolutely is for you. Like I've said before, I'm not immune to this. I definitely felt super behind. Firstly, when I was in university and I didn't get into medicine, and I tried time and time again and continued not to get the requisite scores necessary to make it into a medical school. And then I watched my peers follow, in my mind, a seemingly very clear path mapped out for them, and I felt completely off track. And so when I decided not to go down that path, I felt like I was starting from square one. I went through a variety of different jobs in medical research and medical administration. I worked as an orderly. I worked in fitness, selling gym memberships, selling the dream. And I was just like trying a bunch of different things, but I didn't know, I didn't feel like I was on track. I definitely felt like I was falling behind because I was just throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and seeing what would stick. And it really made me question my sense of identity and self-worth. I wondered deeply if I'd already fallen behind before my life or my career life even began. And then it got worse. It got much, much worse. If you tuned into the first episode, then you'll know that I was going through a pretty significantly challenging time in my life where I was feeling very disconnected from myself. I was navigating some pretty heavy family trauma, feeling very out of place and lacking a sense of belonging in the workplace and in my own life. I was using drugs and alcohol to numb out, to feel a sense of enoughness and to fit in. And it caught up to me when I was pulled over with drugs in my system, only a few kilometers away from a music festival. And it ended up, I won't go into the full story. You'll have to listen to episode 1, but I ended up going to court. I lost my job. Not only did I feel like I was behind in life, I felt like I was going backwards. I was just riddled with so much shame. I remember like so many mornings where I would wake up and I'd just be like, well, what's the point? What is the point? And you can look at it both ways, right? On the one hand, I was like, well, what's the point of trying? Because I feel like every single time I try, I continue to sabotage myself and my life. And then on the other side of the coin, I was like, well, how much worse could it possibly get? So it's only up from here. But yeah, throughout that, there's definitely a sense of shame. a sense of isolation, so much depression, and a sense that my life had slipped away. Now, I know that that's not the truth, and I want you to know that that's not the truth for you. And my mission for you, throughout this episode is to continuously remind you of that. I'll share as well, only recently, I felt like I was falling behind as well, maybe a couple of years ago, when I shifted away from an old business model, had to make a difficult decision to shut down operations and pivot into what I'm doing now in this coaching business. And I, continued to watch other peers or other business owners grow and scale and seemingly go from strength to strength. And I felt like I was starting over again. So much comparison, so much self-doubt, so much pressure to catch up, right? Which informed a lot of the stress and the urgency and the anxiety that I was feeling to try and continue pushing at the time. And so, I know now that is such a blessing because I wasn't starting over again. I was starting with so much more wisdom and discernment and insight into my life and into how I think and how I operate and how business works. And so, it was a gift in many ways. But constantly I found myself thinking, well, why does this feeling of being behind hit so hard? Why does it feel like it's such a threat to who we are as human beings? And through my own self-analysis and deep introspection and research and geeking out on all of this stuff that I love sharing with you is, which you may know or know on an unconscious level, is that there's an invisible rule book. Most people carry an internal timeline, right? Like by this age, I should have a partner, a house, a business, kids, whatever. By now, I should be here. And if I am not, something is wrong. I want you to hear me when I say that. If I am not, something is wrong. As you hear that, how does it feel as those words hit you? The reason I emphasize it is because when we think about that, or we feel that on an unconscious level, something is wrong creates so much internal resistance and friction in our nervous system. Because this script is rarely conscious, right? It comes from culture, from family, school, peers, social media. You unconsciously absorb it when someone says something at an event about where they are in life, or when you see something on social media about a highlight reel of someone living out their best life wherever, overseas or in a new business, and kicking goals and whatever, right? Like, no judgment, but what happens is you absorb it and then you measure your life against it, and you're not measuring yourself against reality. You're measuring yourself against a script that you have unconsciously created, right? An invisible script. It doesn't exist. It's illusory. And if we look at it through the lens of neuroscience, the brain actually tracks social rank, right? And this is, firmly ingrained in us, in our biology, from the days in which we existed in tribes and compared ourselves against other tribes in this sort of ranking system. So belonging to the tribe, as in, oh, well, I belong because I have a job and, and a home and I rent or I buy or I'm married or I have kids, whatever it is, right? When we feel that sense of belonging, it equals safety. And then falling behind, as in not meeting those illusory expectations, equals a threat. And so the nervous system then reads comparison as danger, which creates that feeling of resistance that I was talking about before. If I'm not here, if I'm not where X, Y, Z is, then something is wrong. It's not physical danger that you experience, it's social danger. And the brain, as I hope you know by now, it prioritizes survival and belonging, which is why falling behind feels so heavy in the body. You might experience it as a tight chest. Maybe you have shallow breath when you think about falling behind. A sense of restlessness and shame, maybe like I experienced. And, a big part of why this show exists is, man, I just feel like I'm not enough. Urgency, always feeling like you need to be doing things so that you stop yourself from falling behind. All of this is a survival response. Then, we look at something like social media, as I said before, which is an illusion, which is a distortion of perception, because what you're seeing is highlights. You're not seeing the timeline of people's lives. You're not seeing the context. You're not seeing the struggle. You're not seeing the moments where they're up at night fearing about how they're going to be able to pay rent, or to be able to put food on the table for their kids, or to be able to make it through the next day, knowing that they're holding on to so much grief of losing their loved ones or partners or whatever it is. So you're constantly comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's curated outcome. And I know this is nothing new. You've probably heard this before. You probably know this on a cognitive level, but it hasn't landed for you in your body because you still experience that sense of falling behind. And I want you to start thinking about this concept of sonder. Sonder is the awareness that every single person has a story, even the random passers-by in your life. We are all dealing with our own unique challenges. And you don't understand or know about all of the moving pieces. And this is also a nod of respect to Sonder Festival as well here in Victoria, that have really created a space to appreciate that and embrace it and celebrate it. But the reason I bring it up is because we can tend to forget about that when we're stuck in this sense of social comparison, especially online. And then if we consider behavioral psychology, there's something called availability bias, which basically means you see success stories more often. Then you assume that everyone else is ahead, and then your brain creates this false average, and you feel late relative to a fake baseline. And then we bring in dopamine. Constant exposure to progress and wins makes the brain believe that progress should be really fast and always visible. So if you're not moving quickly, and if you're not posting or sharing, then you're failing. But I want you to know this, that you're not behind. You're comparing yourself to this distorted timeline. And this creates so much suffering, as it did for me. So much suffering. I mean, maybe you didn't get pulled over with drugs in your system and have to go to court to experience it, but maybe you experience it in subtle ways. Maybe you go to an event and you hear someone achieving a specific milestone, and you haven't achieved that milestone, and then you experience that sense of envy or comparison or jealousy, and it feels really uncomfortable in your body, and you start questioning, like, what am I doing? And there's a real cost here. There's a really, really big cost of believing that you're falling behind. Because when you believe that you're behind, you start rushing your decisions. You're not thinking clearly. You abandon what matters to you, what truly matters, and you start pursuing egoic desires. And when I say egoic desires, I mean desires that aren't authentic to you. They are desires that your ego or your sense of self has created this meaning around, and this sense of urgency and scarcity around, because of what you see on social media, or what you have heard someone else say, or what your parents have told you. So you actually abandon what's really true to you and your soul, and you start chasing what looks really impressive. You might start chasing promotions, or certain getaways, or superficial trappings, or success, or whatever you believe looks impressive, and then you ignore your true values, you ignore your own timing, and this creates stress. And as we've explored already, this stress narrows your perception, the prefrontal cortex goes offline, your clarity drops, your creativity drops, your intuition drops, and you start living reactively instead of intentionally. You start taking actions and you make decisions in a reactive place based upon what you see Jenny doing or Sam doing. And it's not intentional. You haven't sat down and asked yourself, well, this is what's important to me. I'm going to start making gradual, conscious steps forward towards what I want. You're just reacting to your environment. And there's so much chronic urgency. And you get stuck in comparison spirals. And you feel shame. And you burn out. And there's a loss of meaning to your life, because you're like, well, what's the point? What is the point? I'm chasing this thing, but it's not even really, it doesn't really light me up. It doesn't really feel exciting for me. And the clarity that you lose on your vision and what's true and real for you is lost not because you are quote unquote behind, as we've explored, that's nonsense. You're losing the clarity because you're actually feeling unsafe. And the Stoics knew this. Stoics said, focus on what's in your control. What's in your control? How you think, how you feel, and how you act. So comparison and timelines that aren't yours are completely, like, it's out of your control. It's also illusory, as we've discussed as well. So it's like you're comparing yourself not to what's truth, you're comparing yourself to what you have created up in your own mind, to some imaginary story. So again, anything external to you, let that go. And the Buddhists would say that you're being attached to things. You're attached to timelines. You're attached to this sense of identity. You're attached to where you think you should be. And you're not truly living in the present. And Buddha said the root of all suffering is attachment or craving. And a nod of respect to the Bhagavad Gita as well is that right action is taken without attachment to outcome. So your job here is alignment. It's alignment to what lights you up, to what excites you, to what inspires you, as opposed to trying to match someone else's pace. All of that's just ludicrous. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, but you have experienced your own unique upbringing, your own unique family dynamics and childhood and traumas or challenges or adversities or hardships or social circles. You have been shaped and conditioned in your own unique way, and so has everyone else. So to actually compare yourself to others, again, makes complete nonsense because it's apples and oranges. Different seeds grow at different rates. And what I really love is this metaphor of this bamboo. Has really helped me because I've felt like I've been falling behind for the majority of my life. The bamboo spends years building roots down beneath the ground before it shoots up, right? If you judged bamboo in year 2, you would think that it was failing. And so life, I believe, I know, operates in seasons and cycles. Some seasons are for laying down roots, not results. There are seasons to sow and there are seasons to reap, right? So, and that's given me so much grace and compassion, especially in recent years where it's felt like, well, things have felt stagnant in some ways. And there hasn't been perhaps as much movement externally as I would have liked, but there's been a deep process of healing and catharsis and recalibration on my values and what feels meaningful to me, whether it relates to work or my social circles and family and everything. And so that's given me so much more self-compassion, which I want for you as well, because it actually means you can take solace in the fact that you are where you're supposed to be indeed. Now, how do you actually liberate yourself from this falling behind story? I want to give you some really practical steps and actions that you can take straight away and implement. So step 1, notice the script when it comes up, right? Maybe when you're at that party and you hear someone talk about something, or when you're scrolling on social media and you see someone hit a goal, or you see the highlight reel. And then ask yourself, hang on a minute, what timeline am I measuring myself against? Who gave me that timeline? And is it even mine? Most of the time it's not. Step 2, separate the facts, the objective facts, from the story that you create. The fact is, you are here. The story is, I'm falling behind. And just notice the difference. Step 3 is regulate the body, because feeling behind is a nervous system state. It creates that sense of stress and anxiety and urgency and restlessness. So when you feel that start to bubble up, slow breathing. Take inhales and longer exhales. Do some movement, do some grounding, because your clarity returns when your body feels safe, not when you're trapped in a doom scroll/comparison spiral. Step 4, zoom out. I love this quote from Tony Robbins. It's People overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade or 2 decades. And I love that. And it's given me so much more peace around how I approach my life. Look at your life in decades, not weeks or months. If you were mapping out like a story or the script for your movie, you would map out the whole thing. You wouldn't just map out a chapter. That's what I do, at least. I map out my entire life, right? And so build a long arc, build many chapters, build many pivots. Think about it. Now, it might not unfold in the way that you'd like to, but even the active process of having a vision for your life over several decades and breaking it down into small achievable chunks and setting a clear intention can actually support you in executing on your goals over a specific period of time and giving yourself that sense of self-compassion, as opposed to, we get trapped in this whole New Year's resolution bullshit, and not many people realize that their resolutions. In fact, most people don't realize their resolutions. We only give ourselves a year. I want you to give yourself 3 decades. Just play with that for a moment. How would you be showing up if you gave yourself 3 decades to accomplish what you want to accomplish? Now, step 5 is redefine what progress means to you, because progress is not about speed. It's not about speed at all. Progress is about alignment. It's about being honest with yourself. It's about doing what matters, not following the script, the invisible script or the invisible rule book or the path that your parents or your friends or social media has told you to follow. Redefine what progress really means to you and ask better questions. A better question for step 6 would be, what season am I in? And you might want to ask yourself that question now. Am I in a season of sowing or am I in a season of reaping? Am I in a season for laying down roots or am I in a season of generating results? And what is this phase teaching me? Right? I have gained such a greater perspective on my life and a greater sense of resilience throughout adversity and challenges by constantly asking myself, what is this specific circumstance or situation trying to teach me? And what would one aligned action look like today? And a bonus one, if I trusted my timing and if I trusted that everything was meant to unfold in the right timing, what would change? How would I be thinking? How would I be feeling? How would I be showing up? I know I show up very, very differently when I trust my timing versus when I compare my timing to illusory timelines that belong to blah. And step 7 is take one aligned action today, not 10 frantic ones, because alignment compounds. Aligned inspired action beats rushed action every time, right? Now, I don't want to just leave you with that hanging on its own. Aligned action comes from all of those steps that you've gone through beforehand. Go through those steps, map it out, re-listen to this episode again, journal on that, ask yourself those questions. What season am I in? What is this phase teaching me? What would aligned action look like today? What does progress look like for me? All of it. And then chunk down to what would one aligned action look like today that supports this new sense of perspective that I have about the season of life that I'm in and what matters most to me. So as we bring this in for a landing, maybe you're not behind. Maybe you're just in a chapter that hasn't unfolded yet. Maybe roots are growing. Maybe your direction is actually in the process of clarifying. Maybe you're in the process of learning how to restore a sense of safety and calm to your nervous system so that clarity can emerge. Because falling behind is a story that the nervous system tells when it feels very unsafe and uncertain. And I know that if you've stuck around to the end of this episode, then building a sense of safety and peace is really important for you. And so I invite you to do that today. Find that safety, find that sense of calm and peace using whatever tools or practices or activities you have at your disposal. Notice the clarity that emerges and then take aligned movement from there because you're not behind. You are in the process of unfolding. So I love you so much. I thank you so much for being here with me in this conversation, and I'll see you in the next episode.